This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Smith. And the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that is to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. So our topic today is all about self-care. We're going to talk about how do you do a better job of caring for yourself, honoring yourself, not letting yourself get burned out. And there's so many different ways we can do that. And so to help guide us on that journey, I've got my good friend and colleague all the way from Prague, David Papa, joining us. David, good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too, Brandon. Very happy to be here.
You know, I was talking with you before the show, and I would be remiss if I didn't make the comment for all of our listeners and viewers. You look pretty slick today, dude. You look, the haircut's like, you know, the headphones look good. It's like, you get the black t-shirt. I mean, you're looking very European DJ. European DJ. It's good. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, that's I'm getting into the European spirit. I had to look, slick for your show. That's what I got to do.
I mean, I wore my Highway of Awesomeness shirt today, but it's like not even close to how cool you look today.
I don't know. That shirt does a lot of work for you.
It does. It's really to just distract people from what's going on up here. It's like, ignore this, just focus on the shirt.
I feel like that shirt is at least, 20% of your sales strategy.
It could be. Maybe I need my whole line of shirts.
Yeah.
They could, that's not a bad idea. I think we have a business idea here.
Worksmith's Highway of Awesome shirts.
Highway of Awesomeness shirts. I love it. All right. So you've been on the show a couple times, but for new listeners and viewers, give us a little bit of background on you, kind of who you are, what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I am David Papa, and I help people access the subtler layers of themselves so they can really bring that out in their work, in their personal life. I'm talking about things like intuition. I'm talking about working with emotions. I'm talking about really understanding what your heart wants and how to go act on that in the world. Sometimes I refer to it as spiritual intelligence, this idea of connecting with who you really are deep down and letting that come through in your work and your personal life, because it's been a total game changer for me when I focus on these things. It's a game changer for when the people I work with, and when they realize they can really bring these types of things from inside of them out more fully and connect with them. It really changes the way you see the world and move through the world. So I get really excited about that kind of thing. That's what I work on.
Super cool, dude. And I know you've been going even further down that path, even on some of the projects we've been kind of working on together. You've been really giving that gift to people. So for our topic today of self-care, maybe that's a good kind of pivot and transition. What are some of the things that you're seeing come up as either kind of challenges for people, that you're seeing more of the common challenges? And what are some approaches that you're using that might be helpful for all the listeners and viewers today?
Yeah, well, one of the challenges that actually has come up quite recently several times is leaders just not knowing how to get out of really difficult emotions that they're having, like anxiety or irritation. They're seeing these emotions come up when their interactions in team meetings or with their direct reports, and they know they don't want to act from these emotions. They don't want to act from their anger and say something, from their anger, but they're not really sure what to do with it. They're not really sure how to work with it. So that's interestingly been coming up quite a bit for me recently.
So are they inadvertently having that kind of spill over either in their facial expressions or what they're saying or doing in meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a large portion of our communication is nonverbal, right? So if you're angry, if you're irritated, if you're anxious, you're going to be doing things with your body and face that someone else in your voice that someone else is going to be picking up on. We're wired deep down to be able to pick up subtle cues of facial expression and body language. So you can't really hide that stuff, and you can try to be super robotic, but stuff is going to leak out, and they're maybe saying things, or someone is noticing their irritation, and they know that I'm irritated because of something I'm thinking about, but it's coming out, and now I'm negatively affecting this other person with my emotion. And I don't think I want to do that. How can I do that differently? That's the kind of question I've been getting.
Okay. So I can totally relate. I mean, you know this about me. When I get really frustrated or upset, I can't hide it. I turn red. I turn like so red. It's like redder than your headphones right now, dude. Like I turn really red, and it's obvious. People are like, "Oh yeah, we can tell. He's upset. He's red."
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some things that you focus on with folks, or how do you help them work through that or manage that better? So if you had someone, put me aside, if you had someone who said, yeah, I get really frustrated or angry, all those things you mentioned are almost like, tense things, right? It's like our fists are clenched. We're frustrated, we're angry, we're anxious. It's this kind of holding on tighter to the steering wheel. It's a lot of this. How do you get them to kind of release?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a couple angles to this. One is what happens when you're in a room with someone else and you're around other people, maybe in a meeting. And another angle is, your own self-care, what you do when you're alone. Working with your emotions, I feel like, is one of the most important self-care activities that we can do, because our emotions are they're not coincidence. You're not getting irritated out of the blue. You're not getting angry out of the blue. These are messages from our subconscious that are telling us the kinds of beliefs and the kinds of rules and the kinds of dangers we are holding in our subconscious nervous system. So much of our thinking actually happens at the subconscious level. In different science that you read about this, it's anywhere from 95 to 99% of our thinking, of the computation that's going on inside our nervous system, including our brain, happens below our conscious awareness. And emotions are actually a signal from that supercomputer that's going on underneath, a signal about what we actually think is a threat, what we actually think is not part of our identity, what we think goes against our reality. These are all things that trigger us into these uncomfortable emotional states like anger or irritation, frustration, sadness, fear. And a lot of these emotions actually at the root, they have some type of fear at the root, some type of sense of threat that you have based on what's going on in your internal subconscious. So, this working with your emotions is self-care on a deep level. If you work with your emotions, you're able to, soothe yourself, connect with yourself, relax yourself on the inside, in that, 95% that's going on below your conscious awareness. And then everything that comes up on the conscious level starts to change, because what the subconscious is filtering our thoughts and behaviors before they even become conscious. So when we work with the underneath, then our conscious world starts to change. Our perspectives change, our thoughts change, our behaviors change, the actions we can do in the world change, and how we relate to other people changes. So for me, self-care and emotions are completely connected. Is that making sense?
Yeah. So you had me at subconscious.
Okay.
I'm totally there. I'm totally there. So, okay, so now I'm putting on kind of the hat of a listener, and I'm saying to myself, all right, David, I get this. Yeah. How do I do that work? So I'm getting this reaction of frustration or anger. I get the idea it's some kind of protection mechanism for me, either because of my identity, my reality, how I see the world, feeling like a threat, but I don't know where that comes from. How do you go deeper and unpack that? Or in other words, how do you access your subconscious?
Yes, great question. Well, emotions are the language our subconscious uses. So working directly with the emotion allows us to go deeper into our subconscious. So one thing that for me is a big self-care tip for everybody is every day, ideally in the morning, connect with your emotions. And don't see them as, you don't have to see them as some frivolous thing you wish you could get out of. These are actual data for you in your life. They're data for what's running your life on a subconscious level. So, for example, in the morning, sit and write at the top of a piece of paper, what am I really feeling today? And then answer it, free writing, whatever comes, don't censor yourself. And you'll be surprised when you start doing this. If you don't work with your emotions regularly, you'll be surprised at what you're actually really feeling. Mm-hmm. And then if you're a meditator, if you're someone who meditates already, every morning sit and start doing a deep breathing, ideally a deep belly breathing, and you'll start to feel emotions coming up in your body. And when that happens, what you want to do is you want to hold your attention on the emotion, keep breathing, and feel the emotion. Give that emotion all your attention. Don't try to escape it. Don't try to sedate it. Don't try to avoid it. Your brain is going to come up with all kinds of thoughts for you to get out of it, because we resist our emotions. We've grown up learning to resist our emotions. And we want to use these practices to stop that so that we can move through our emotions. If we resist them, they just stay stuck in our system. And that irritation, that anger, it will never go away. So we need practices like this to see them for what they really are, as data coming up from inside of us. Feel them all the way down. And you'll notice that when you do this, you just sit and you do the belly breathing and you feel the spot of the emotion in your body and you go into it as deeply as you can with feeling. If you do that a couple times, you'll notice all of a sudden the emotion's gone. All of a sudden that situation stops irritating you. All of a sudden that situation stops angering you. You literally can release these things from your subconscious with just sitting and feeling them more deeply than you ever have before.
So it sounds like you have to have some level of focused time or space to do this well. It's not like you can do this while you're sitting in the car and commuting to work. I think that what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, probably not. For example, when I do this, sometimes I'll have tears as the emotion leaves my body. Sometimes I'll have, sometimes I'll shake a little bit, or I'll twitch. A lot of times it'll feel like a lot of heat, and you want to keep your attention on the emotion in your body. I mean, a lot of people, before they start something like this, they don't realize that our emotions if we pay a little bit of attention, they're felt as actual sensations in spots on our body. There's a very physical component that comes with our emotion. And maybe some people are used to like getting anxiety in the stomach, like butterflies, or feeling like if they tell a lie, right? Or they're scared to say something, they'll feel like a constriction in their throat. What's going on there? There's like, it's a full body process going on. Your subconscious is a full body experience, and it's giving you data from all over your body. So when we sit and find the spot in our body that's holding the emotion and go into it with breathing and feeling as deeply as we can, it literally starts to move out of we relax, we release, and the emotion moves up and out of us, and it can be heat and there can be some tears, but then it's done. Then it's done. And then the situation that was bothering us, it's totally changed. You almost got to try it to believe me. I know it's going to sounds like it's too simple and too good to be true, but it's like any type of release you have in your body. It's like any type of release you have in your nervous system. It's just this one has to do with emotions, which sort of feel like an energy, but they're just like a muscle relaxing. But we have to go look at the tension, see the tension for what it is. And there's all this energy held in the tension. And then if we hold our attention there, it relaxes. Oh, we might cry, we might shake, but then it's not there anymore.
Okay, so we're going to go to break. When we come back, okay, I've got some questions about how to really do this.
Okay.
Because you've sold me that this is important, but I've also got some questions about some things I didn't hear you say that I expected you to say. So, okay, hold tight. We're gonna go to break. We come right back. We've got self-care with David Papa. Who wants to miss that? Hey everyone, this is Brandon. I hope your 2018 is everything you'd hoped it would be. That said, we could all use a tune-up. Go to my site, theworkplacetherapist.com, www.theworkplacetherapist, all one word, .com, for a library of resources for you. You can find past shows, blog posts on navigating workplace dysfunction, and even my TED Talk on the contagiousness of emotions in the workplace. And that's not all. There are the Workplace Happiness Workbooks to help you find happiness in your job, and even a tab to Ask the Therapist, where you can ask me anything on your mind. We all need a tune-up once in a while. Get yours today. Welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and today we're with David Papa, and we're talking about self-care. So, David, right before the break, you were talking about the importance of really sitting down, being fully present, kind of thinking about feeling that emotion, thinking about where it is in your body, and accepting it and helping it release. Now, what was interesting was what I would expected you to say that I didn't hear you say was explore where that emotion's coming from in terms of backstory or what it's trying to tell you. That really wasn't part of that. It was really more about accepting it and letting it go. Is that fair?
The thing I have found as I have done this process for years and have worked with many people on this is called emotional integration. I've worked with many people on emotional integration. And what I have found is you do not actually need to understand logically and mentally exactly what the emotion is, what the cause of the emotion is for it to be released.
Okay.
So that can be a helpful part of the process if you're someone who likes to understand. You want to know where the emotion came from. Why is this thing that triggers me? Why do I have something in my subconscious that is reacting in anger in this situation? There are other people in this same situation. They're not reacting in anger, right? The emotion is mine. My reaction is mine. So, 100 other people in that situation might react, 90 different ways. So the emotion is happening inside of me. Why is my subconscious reacting this way? Why does it perceive some type of threat? And there are some thought-based tools that you can use, and we could talk about some of these. There are some thought-based tools you can use to unpack the reason underneath why and try to find that belief you're holding that the emotion is attached to, but you don't need it. You actually don't need it.
So it's interesting because the therapist in me would say, well, gosh, you want to understand where that's coming from, where in your story that's coming from, so you can kind of get to the core of that, process that so it doesn't keep coming up. Because if you haven't gotten to the core, it'll keep resurfacing. Now, what you're giving is tools to have it move through you so it doesn't become an obstacle in your life.
What I'm saying is kind of the same thing, actually, that you can get to the core through completely a feeling route as well, through a complete breathing and feeling route.
Oh,
there's a whole world out there called Transformational Breath. It's basically what I'm talking about. You work with a therapist who helps you breathe more deeply and find these places in your body with your breath, and you hold your attention there where there's tension, and you feel the emotion there, and you let the emotions up, and you probably cry, but you just keep breathing. And then with your feeling and your attention, you can get to the core. Now, what I've found is that in doing this process is that the insights that I need for my life, they happen actually automatically. Like once I get to the core and release the emotion, my thoughts will change, and I'll see why I was behaving a certain way, and I'll see how I want to behave. And I'll be able to do that much more easily once I've let the tension and emotion out of my body. So this, I think we're talking about kind of two directions to get to the same thing, and look, for me, I've been to lots of talk therapy, and I've done couples therapy, I've done therapy by myself. I spent a long time exploring why my mind works the way it did, because I had an encounter with depression back maybe around 2006, and that's when I really started trying to understand, like, what's going on. My mind is not making me happy. How does it really work? So I went through all these like therapy and thinking routes, these analyzing routes, and none of them really worked for me. And so this is just me. This is what works for me and the people I work with. It probably doesn't work for everyone, but the thing that works faster and more efficiently for me to get to a new place in my emotions and a new chance to respond in a new way to what's happening around me is through the deep feeling techniques, because for me, they're working below my mind. My mind can convince me of all kinds of things. It can go in circles so easily, and so just talking about something for me doesn't work. That's just my experience.
Totally get that. I totally get that. And I'm glad you said that, for you, it's been processing the feelings has helped you get to that answer. For others, it might not be the same process. But
yes.
I think that's great. Okay, so if people say, well, yeah, I want to do this. Like, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
What would be, it's almost like, when you're going to, you buy something, like, well, I'll use IKEA as an example. So you buy something at IKEA, and then you open up the enormous instruction manual with all of the many parts. And it's like, okay, before you get started, you're going to need this, and this. Oh, and by the way, this is going to take you 2.5 days. That's IKEA. Yeah. So we might not need 2.5 days, but what would be the starting place? You'd say, okay, if you want to do this, these are the materials you're going to need.
Yeah, the starting place is kind of a mindset that it's okay to not feel okay. So
so right there, that's super profound.
Okay.
I mean, it's simple and it's elegant, but it's profound in that I think that's not what we are told in life.
Yeah.
We are told you are to show up at work. How are you? How are you today? I'm great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The appropriate response is not, actually, life sucks. That's not the appropriate response to the question of how are you? The appropriate global response around the world is, I'm great. How are you? I'm fine too, or I'm great. But you're not, it's not acceptable socially to not feel good or not show up pretending to at least feel good. So you're what you're saying there is you have to give yourself permission that it's okay, it's healthy, and it's normal to not feel good.
One of the is exactly right. One of the groups I'm in online is a group for a startup community, right? And one of the people in the community posted a statement that said, I'm not afraid of failure. What I realize I'm afraid of is the shame and how I think I'm going to be seen when I fail. And he was he was like, discuss that. And I said, hey, that's a great insight. You're starting to feel the emotion. That's really good to notice that it's really a feeling you're afraid of, not actually the physical thing of failure. It's a feeling you're afraid of. And almost when we look into our fears, it's almost always the case. And then he said, well, how do I fix it? And then I went on like a rampage, because like a helpful rampage, like a compassionate rampage. What I said was, look, trying to fix your emotions all the time is the reason they stay there. So the word you used earlier in this call is acceptance. So this mindset of it's okay to not feel okay means we're not trying to fix our emotions all the time. We're not trying to sedate them, avoid them, change them, ignore them, push them. We just need to feel them. They're just a signal from our subconscious there for us to feel. And when we just accept them and feel them, they move away and they move out so much more quickly. So the first is that mindset. It's okay to not feel okay. And then you got to start connecting with your emotions. So something like every morning you do that writing exercise. What am I really feeling today? And you just free write. Or every morning you sit and you start doing the belly breathing and you find the emotions that are coming up inside you. And you don't try to change them. You don't try to convince them away. We're so used to like this be positive all the time world that as soon as we get anger, I know there are so many people around me who do this. As soon as they get angry, they say, oh, but it's not a big deal. I shouldn't be angry. I don't need to be angry about this. They're trying to deconvince themselves of the actual visceral emotion they're feeling inside. And that's just going to keep the anger there. So what they need to do is instead find the time to go sit with that anger and just let it be there.
Go on a compassionate rampage.
Go on a compassionate rampage with yourself and feel the anger that's there. And then you'll see it'll move in your body. Now, there's one really important thing I want to say here, which is like when you show up at work and you're not feeling well at all, and someone asks you, hey, how are you doing? You don't need to like vomit all your negative emotion on them. You know what I mean? You don't need to like spray them, right? But like we had a meeting today, and you asked me how I was doing, and I said, yeah, I'm okay. This is going well. This is going well. And the last couple of weeks have been pretty difficult emotionally. I've just been feeling down for some reason, and I've been doing a lot of processing. That's what I told you. And you didn't say to me like, oh, let's get into that. Let's have a therapy session right now. You just said, oh, wow. Like, I hear that. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Just putting that out there. So that's how to handle these things. They're okay. We don't need to, at work, we don't need to turn conversations into therapy sessions, but we need to acknowledge that the emotion is there in people and that it's okay to sometimes not feel okay. And it's going to pass. It's going to pass. You got to feel it, and it will pass.
Yeah, and I think that's important. If I wear the leader hat for a minute, it's really important for leaders when they don't feel okay to acknowledge that. Say, hey, everybody, I just want to let you know I'm frustrated today, or I'm in a state of a little anxiety around this.
Yes.
And leaders don't feel, even more so, they don't feel like they have that permission. So what they do is they say, no, everything's fine, but people can feel that anxiety, but they're not hearing it being named anxiety. So they go into their head and try and figure out what's going on. I see the same thing happen with children. When parents are anxious, but the parents don't label it as anxiety or that, and they pretend like everything's fine, but the kids feel it. When they're younger, it turns into really strange OCD quirks. I have to have all the doors closed. I have to have all the light bulbs on properly. They find things they can control because they can feel the emotion, but it's not being named. So just naming it is important. And there's a release that comes with just naming it.
Yes. We just need to see it more clearly and feel it more deeply on our own. So one of the most important exercises I teach for leaders around this is so simple. It's called How Are You Arriving? And when you show up to a one-on-one or when you show up to a team meeting, the first question you ask before you get into the agenda is you ask everybody to say in 20 seconds or less, how are you arriving today to this meeting? So you go around and you start as a leader and you say, you know what, I'm arriving frustrated today. I had so many things going on this morning. I didn't get done what I needed to do. I'm just feeling stressed and I'm feeling frustrated, but I'm glad to be here in this meeting with you and get the meeting started. And then you go around the circle and everybody just says something, right? Now, why is that important? Because if you don't say that, the thing you're talking about will happen. People will react in the meeting from their emotions. You might share an idea and someone will resist that idea, and it might not actually be because they dislike the idea. It might be because they're just feeling angry that day and you never acknowledged it. So when you just do this, how are you arriving in the beginning of a meeting, and you just acknowledge the emotions that are there, now all of a sudden people can take that breath, get that pause, move next to their emotions and get into a more calm place. Now you're all present with each other, connected together. It changes the entire environment of the meeting.
I think you're making another really important point that I'd want everyone to hear, and that is, if you don't acknowledge your emotions or name them or accept them, they will make sure they are heard.
Yes.
They will find a way in, and not when you want it to. So you can't bottle it and hold it down. They're stronger than that. So they'll come in with a comment you make that has an extra edge, and people are going to be like, "Wow, what's wrong with David today? Like, does he not like his haircut? I like his haircut. I don't understand.
What's wrong with my hair, Brandon? What's wrong with my hair?" Yeah.
So you're right, though. I mean, you have to be able to acknowledge that. And I've seen you do that exercise, and it's really powerful. It's a great way to just go around and say, how are you arriving today? And it touches on something I've talked on this show. If you go back to the trust formula, it's authenticity and vulnerability. That's what you're really accessing there. And so it can actually improve team dynamics because you're bringing more of your authentic self and your vulnerable self to those discussions. Absolutely. Yeah. Totally.
I love that you said that. And one of the things you say a lot, which I love, is that when in absence of communication, people assume the worst. Yeah. Right. So if you're not communicating what emotions are going on in you, and then someone feels those emotions, they might think you're directing it at them. They might think you're angry with them, annoyed with them, and frustrated with them. They're going to make up a whole story in their head about why you are angry that day or frustrated that day or sad that day or scared that day or whatever. And they're going to think they did it. And now you're just spreading it, or you're just spreading this anxiety around instead of just naming it, taking a breath. And, okay, thank you. And when someone shares their emotion with you, in this How Are You Arriving exercise, when someone shares their emotion with you, you don't need to go into a whole therapy session. Remember, you can just say, thank you. Thank you for telling us that you're feeling that way. That's it. That's the only response you need.
Yeah. Now you can, if you wanted to, you could add on, if it makes you feel better, is there anything you need from us?
Great question.
And you can ask that. And so if the person has something they want, you're giving an invitation. More often than not, people are going to say, no, I just thank you for acknowledging that. Every once in a while, someone might say something, but that gives you a nice sense of closure that you've honored it and tried to provide some level of support. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But I think you make another good point too, that if you don't name it, then you spread that anxiety to that next manager, and then they go back to their teams, and then they spread it, and it just becomes contagious, and it's kind of like that kick the dog syndrome. It just goes all the way down. It's not cool. So I notice time is already up, my friend. Our time just flies. So I always ask this question. I have to ask this question. What is one life hack you have for us today? So what is something that we can take away from either our conversation today or beyond that help us live a life that much more free from dysfunction? What's something we can do either personally or professionally?
The emotions are like layers of energy on top of your real self. Your joy and your love for life, your excitement for life, It's all already inside you. It's just underneath these layers of threat protection, like the anger and the sadness and the fear. So my number one life hack that has absolutely changed my life is just make and honor yourself enough to sit and just feel whatever is present with you every day in some way. And you will find that those layers of protection start to leave, and your joy starts to naturally rise. Your love for life starts to naturally rise. Your excitement for and the things in your life that give you excitement and how you can move toward them and act on them, that starts to rise in your system. This is I wish every kid was taught this, because literally it just has completely changed so many people's lives. I mean, I learned it from other teachers who are teaching this type of thing, and I don't think there's anything else in this modern world that can help us more than just sitting and doing emotional integration work every day and get down deeper to who we really are.
Amen, brother. Amen. So if people want, you're awesome, dude. If people want to learn more about you, what you're up to, even connect with you, where can they go?
They can go to my website, which is loveandprofit.com. And there's an article on there about emotional integration and one particular technique if you want to get interested in it. I also have a podcast called Creating Love and Profit, where I talk about these kind of things. And episode number 7 is talks about emotional integration as well, if you want to learn more about that. So it's one of the tools I am absolutely most passionate about, because we don't realize how sometimes it's difficult, but also how simple it is to release these things that are holding us back.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Awesome.
All right. I'm getting off the soapbox now. I'm getting off.
Awesome. Awesome. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, viewing, listening. Continue to keep up the fight every week as we continue to fight dysfunction. Of course, you can follow this show on iTunes if you're probably already listening. And of course, check out the website, The Workplace Therapist, for more articles, resources, and even to watch the videos. So until the next show and next week, have an awesome week and an awesome life.